Hi, I'm Robbie Bobby. This video is the fourth in a series that examines the laundry list, otherwise known as the 14 traits of an adult child. The topic is Trait 4, which reads, we either become alcoholics, marry them, or both, or find another compulsive personality, such as a workaholic, to fulfill our sick abandonment needs. Oh boy, this says a lot. I'll try to break it down as I see it and talk about what it means, as well as what it implies. The opening line, we either become, is worded differently from the rest of the traits. All of the traits point to the past and present, which naturally imply a continuation into the future, unless something changes, i.e., recovery. For example, we became approval seekers. Trait 2 implies that it happened in the past. In my case, I believe I was an approval seeker by the time I was 5 years old, and I've been one ever since. Most of my traits were acquired at a very young age. Fear of authority figures, judging myself harshly, stuffing my feelings, etc. I consider these to be level 1 defense mechanisms. They happen early on and build the foundation for level 2, becoming an alcoholic or codependent, which happen further down the road. By the way, you probably notice that I'm using the word codependent while the trait does not. The trait says that we either become alcoholics, marry them, or both, which pretty much says the same thing because codependents typically seek out dysfunctional partners, often going from one alcoholic relationship to the next. However, what codependents are really after, on an unconscious level, is someone who is emotionally unavailable, which is why they're attracted to alcoholics, but not exclusively. Workaholics also make emotionally unavailable partners, although usually with less excitement and chaos, which means if you're addicted to excitement, trait 8, you may gravitate towards alcoholics rather than workaholics. So why wasn't the word codependent used in this trait? Good question. Codependency did not come into popular use until the mid-1980s with Melanie Beattie's best-selling book titled Codependent No More, which was published in 1986. The 14 Traits of an ACA were published in 1978. Had the traits been written a decade later, it's likely that Tony A. would have chosen the word codependent. In fact, I think Trait 4 could be simplified as follows. We fulfill our sick abandonment needs by becoming alcoholic, codependent, or both. This version is not only more succinct, it helps put more attention on what easily gets lost on the tail end of the official version. That adult children have sick abandonment needs, which demand to be filled at any cost. And what are these sick abandonment needs? Well, I have two ways to look at it. The first is that each of the 14 traits represent an abandonment need, including Trait 4 itself. I think whether we become alcoholic or codependent, we set ourselves up for abandonment. It goes with the territory. This explanation has two benefits. First, it's easy to understand. Second, it adds perspective and therefore increases my understanding of all the traits, not just Trait 4. The second way to look at it is on a deeper level, which has to do with the unconscious need to recreate our childhood abandonment. Why? Because our childhood abandonment prevented intimacy with our parents. Therefore, we crave it, on the one hand, because it's a basic human need that was never met, and we fear it on the other. And I think the real fear surrounding intimacy has to do with the fear of losing it, because we feel we don't deserve it. It's safer to numb ourselves and avoid intimacy than to risk opening ourselves and have it taken away. So some adult children will avoid relationships altogether. Others will sabotage them before they're in too deep. Others will put their true self into hiding, becoming the false self, in order to keep the relationship going. And of course, there can be no true intimacy without the true self. It also helps to have a partner who's on the same page. In other words, that is equally afraid of intimacy. This is why alcoholics and codependents are a perfect match. By the way, Trait 12 is so relevant that I need to read it. Trait 12. We are dependent personalities who are terrified of abandonment and will do anything to hold on to a relationship in order to not experience painful abandonment feelings, which we received from living with sick people who were never there emotionally for us. And finally, I'd like to expand on something that I mentioned earlier, and that is that paralcoholism is the foundation for alcoholism and codependency. You see, Trait 13 refers to adult children as paraalcoholics. Therefore, you can rephrase Trait 4 as paraalcoholics either become alcoholic, codependent, or both. It's almost predetermined. This is consistent with Tony A's Step 4, which says, we made a searching and blameless inventory of our parents because, in essence, we had become them. If you had alcoholic and codependent parents, then you would be a paraalcoholic child and likely become or blossom into an alcoholic or codependent adult, thereby completing the cycle of family dysfunction. By the way, I see Trait 4 as an expression of Step 4. Integrating the traits with the steps help me to understand them, as well as myself, better. And that wraps up this video, which was meant to be food for thought. If you got something out of it, please click like and subscribe and forward to a fellow traveler. I'm Robbie Bobby. Thank you for listening, and as always, keep coming back.